In reality, the Yardies weren't really an organised criminal gang at the beginning. They're more like a collection of individuals who came together whenever it suited them to inflict their own brand of chaotic criminal activity. Nevertheless, they had a major impact on the streets of the UK.
Hey, move that from the face. Take that off your face. Michael. No, don't Michael me, bro. I'll tell Michael.
This is Broadwater Farm, a council estate in North London. It was here that I discovered how the Yardies influenced local copycat criminals, including one particular individual who adopted Yardie techniques and took their unique brand of violence to a new, terrifying level. Well, I've come here to the Broadwater Farm estate because I want to learn about a really notorious British-born Yardie who lived on this estate, and he used methods which were almost straight out of a Yardie textbook. Mark Lambie's story mirrors the story of the rise of violent street crime in the UK. He began as a small-time drug dealer. At the tender age of 21, he became head of the Tottenham Mandem crew, a violent gang of drug dealers.
In the early evening, it's getting dark. It's very difficult for the surveillance officers to actually see what's going on. The gang came down here into the underground car park. We didn't actually know what they were doing down here. These two fellas turned up here in a nice blue Mazda sports car and were set upon by the gang. Approximately 10 people, mainly armed with handguns, jumped out, beat them, assaulted them and put them in the boots of two of the cars.
The police, unaware of what had just happened, followed the two cars carrying the bound and gagged Jamaicans to a nearby estate.
The two Jamaicans, Morris and Smith, had been dragged up to the flat at number 49 and taken in there to be tortured. The victims were taken in, were led upstairs. In the kitchen, you can see the hammer that was used to hammer the toes of one of the victims. One had a kettle of boiling water poured over his genitals, and another one was ironed with an electric iron. You can see some of the blood on the bottom of the radiator there. It was everyday business for Lambie. It was extortion, drugs money, stealing cash from individuals somewhere in the Tottenham area.
It was to prove to be the beginning of the end for Lambie and his gang. Through the streets of North London, police chased a car carrying Lambie's henchmen and drugs stolen from the two Jamaican dealers.
Vehicle came down Stoneleigh Road here, clipped the curb, flicked up onto its roof and crashed. And a quarter of a kilo of heroin fell from the vehicle and burst across the road. Lambie started phoning Morris and Smith and made demands to the effect that a quarter of a kilo of heroin had been recovered by the police, and Morris and Smith owed him £5,000 in lieu of that drugs, and that if they didn't come up with the money, that they or their family would be killed.
With Lambie's gang behind bars, police soon swooped on Lambie himself. Lambie was sentenced to 12 years for kidnap and torture. But that's not the end of the story for Broadwater Farm and inner city estates like it. Even when police succeed in putting criminals like Lambie and his gang away, there are always younger kids ready to replace them.
Somebody will take over, the next one up, will come up, fill their shoes. You get youngsters, 15, 16 years old, think that it's big, it's clever to carry a gun.
The really sad thing at the heart of this story is of how violence just seems to get out of control. And when a gang comes along that uses new methods and a new level of violence for turf, for influence, for money, for prestige, what that does is that it lays down a marker almost for the next generation of criminals to go beyond it, and the violence just spirals ever increasingly upwards.
Okay, so we've just seen a very powerful piece of film there. I'm sure it brings a lot of vivid memories back to you. Yeah. Not good ones.
No. Took me back 12 years.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about how you started. Tell us about your beginning.
I grew up in a normal nuclear family, mum and dad, 4 brothers, 2 sisters. My family, mum and dad, trying to do their best thing for us, children, education, things like that. But I wasn't born here. I was born in Ghana, and I came to join mum and dad when I was about age 7. So throughout my schooling, from primary and the transition to secondary school, I felt I always had a sense of belonging. I was trying to adjust to new environment, new country, new language. So I struggled at school from the beginning, where I couldn't fit into the crowd or other students. I was always sort of looked upon like the geek type person.
Okay, you say the geek. Why the geek?
As I was growing up, I had brains academically. I was very clever. So that was another reason why I wanted to break away that identity and search for a new identity. But I was in a search for an identity, and breaking away and stripping of that identity, I fell into a crowd of people.
So let me get this straight. Being studious, being smart, were you popular with the teachers as well because of your academic ability?
Yeah.
That made you uncomfortable because they put you under pressure with your peers.
That's right.
And so because of that you rebelled against being academically astute, against being scholastic, and it pushed you to what?
To the gang.
Okay.
And having said that as well, there's another bit of pressure. My parents, but at that young age, as a young boy, I didn't understand what my parents were trying to achieve for us, my brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Coming from an African background, their parents were very strict. My parents were very, very strict. You know, we used to have to go to bed like 8 o'clock, do our homework. They wouldn't let us go out and venture and play with other kids on the Broad Farm estate. They always kept us in the house. So that's another bit of rebellion that was going on within myself. I wanted to break away.
What was life like on Broadwater Farm Estate then? What were the children like? What was the environment like there?
Very rough. As shown on that video, we used to live in a block of flats, Tangier House. Right outside the flat, they used to call it the front line. You got like 20 people all standing on the front line selling drugs. So I was exposed to that from a young age.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that your parents were trying to shield you from that, but you didn't see it at the time?
Absolutely. I couldn't comprehend it like that or have the capacity to interpret it like that.
Okay.
I didn't understand it.
But you were how old at this time?
I was like 14.
14. Okay, so you were going through your own transition
Yeah.
at that point, trying to find where you belong, where you fit in. So how was your relationship with your father? Did you not have a strong relationship with him?
I was more close to my mother. My dad was like the breadwinner, if you like. He was always out working. Go out work, come back, rest, go out work. He's always out working.
Okay.
So I was more close to my mum.
So he was quite detached as a father?
Yeah.
So is it important to you now, when you look back, that fathers should really be more interactive with their children, be more aware of who they are and where they're going and what purpose they're here for, and just to be more hands-on?
That's right.
Okay.
And it's even further than that, whereby my father came to this country from like 1966, working. So, and I was born in the 80s. So me and my mum was in Ghana, and my mum came to join my dad before we came to join both parents.
Okay.
So from day one, I was missing that father.
Difficult. The bond wasn't
The bond wasn't there. And when I finally all became together, the bond still wasn't there.
Okay, so you don't fit in at home with your parents or with your father. So your father, the male role model in the house was not a very strong one, and one that you can relate to very well.
No.
Okay, and at school you didn't fit in there because you felt that you needed to fit in with your peers rather than be the teacher's pet. So, where did you go?
Found a new family.
Okay.
And that was the game.
That was the game. Was that in school or was that in your estate?
On my estate.
On your estate.
Yeah.
Okay, how did that happen? What did you do to join the gang?
What I started doing, on the Broad Farm estate, the way the estates were built, there was like an emergency exit in case of fire. And my parents' bedrooms and that was upstairs. My bedroom was downstairs, and that's where the emergency exit was. So I had to sneak through the emergency exit, come out the flat without even them knowing. Then they probably think I'm in bed. I've gone to bed, I was out, and I had to leave it open and sneak back in at night. I had to go out there and hang around with them on the front line.
Okay, but now you're a geek, as you said. You've been accused of being a geek, and you're well brought up. You go to bed at a certain time every night, and your parents are very strict, and you haven't socialised much. How did you infiltrate? How did you get into that gang? What did you do to get in? Did you just hang around and they just became familiar with you? How did that happen?
It started off just hanging around with them, and then that relationship sort of built on. I started seeing what activities they do, like selling drugs and things like that. And then that developed further for them to give me their drugs to look after. I come from a good family, I had to sneak into one and hide it for them. And then that developed on to me start selling drugs from cannabis, and then went on to heroin, cocaine, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time I know it, I was just like them.
Okay, did anything that you were taught as a child come back to you, even from Ghana? Did anything come back to you when you were doing these drug runs or anything like that? Did stashing the drugs, did you not think this is wrong?
Yes.
This would bring shame on my family, this is something that, did you not have a conscience?
I did have conscience, and I was living a double life, and I was in denial. Because I used to go home, and my mum and dad challenged me. Like, how do you afford to have that Rolex watch on? How do you afford to have that designer clothing on? Are you like the kids outside? Are you doing drugs? And I was in denial and battling off, no, I'm not doing that. And I'll walk out of the house and slam the door. I had a chip on my shoulder, so I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to be like my mum and dad and work 9 to 5 and save money and buy land and garden and build a house and all of that. For me, I thought it was too slow. I thought the grass was green on the other side. I thought I can make money quick.
So you're how old now? Are you still 14?
18.
You're 18 now?
About 18.
Okay, so you've got the money, you've got the lifestyle, you've got the girls.
Yeah.
Okay. The fellow gang members, all right, now you're taking drugs to and fro, and you're seeing the things that they're doing. What sort of things were they involved in? Because was it only dealing with drugs? Was it just that?
No, not just drugs. They're dealing in drugs, guns, hurting people, like we saw in that case, kidnapping, targeting other drug dealers.
Okay.
Yeah, extortion.
All right then. So you're 18. How old was the oldest member of that gang?
Over 30.
Over 30.
Yeah.
Okay, was this the gang that they called the Tottenham Mafia?
Yes.
Was it that gang?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was notorious, that gang?
In North London.
All right, to the police as well. There were things that you were doing, not you personally, but as a gang, that needed to be stopped. I mean, if you're terrorising members of the community, if you're using guns and you're threatening people and you're hurting people, these are things that the police are in place for. And we tend to look at the police and say, oh, they just stop black people because, they just don't have anything better to do, or they just do it because, they just want to pick on black people. But they were justified because they've been watching, hadn't they? And had you under surveillance as well?
Yes.
Okay. So you're in this gang, and now you're in cahoots with this person, and he is notorious to the police. They want to nail this man. So he's organised a kidnapping, okay? He's organised and he's saying, right, we're going to take hold of these men, and when we get hold of them, we are going to make sure that by the end of what we do to them, they are going to give us money.
Yeah.
Okay. So how how did he communicate that to you? Or how were those things communicated to you? Did you have to do whatever you had to do?
To be fair to that man, when they decided to commit that crime, I was with him. And he said to me, Francis, it happened on my estate, so go home to your mom's. This is what we're about to do. This is not you.
So he warned you?
He warned me.
Wow.
He said, go home. And I said, no, I'm in part of this.
And that's deep, isn't it? Okay.
I said, I want to hang around while this happened. I want to be around. He said, are you sure? And I stayed with him. He gave me the choice. So I made that choice.
Did you know what he was about to do? Did you know what he was about to do? Or did you just say, I don't want you to be a part of what I'm about to do? Did you know what he was going to do?
No, I didn't know what they were about to do. They just said, you're going to do something. I don't want you to be here because this is not you.
Okay.
Go home to your mom's house.
All right then, so just to recap what happened there, 2 men were kidnapped, put into the boots of 2 cars?
2 cars.
Driven to, were they 2 different locations or the same location?
The same location.
Okay, driven to the same location, brought into a flat, and they were tortured. Money was demanded of them, and when they didn't produce it, they were tortured. Okay. Were you privy to this? Did you see what took place?
I was privy to it, yes.
Okay. So, having witnessed all of this, did nothing say to you, this is wrong, I need to get out of this?
Yes, it did. Because I was given the choice to come out of this situation before it happened, and I made a choice to stick with them, stay with them. By the time we got in the house and this torturing had started, I was way out of my bed.
So would you have been in danger if you tried to leave?
Yeah, who am I to tell them? They'd probably gun back me on the head or something. I just had to go with the flow.
Okay.
That's how I became part of it.
Okay then, so to cut a long story short, after the torture, they were being moved, and somehow one of them managed to break free. The police got involved, and they gave statements, and eventually you were all arrested. Tell us about what happened.
I was the person who crushed that car. That car that was tipped over,
yes,
and the heroin came out.
Yes.
That was me. So after all this kidnaps happened, that certain individual, I don't want to say his name.
Yes, that's fine.
He went and bought drugs, and he called me to come and meet me, to come and get the drugs, and put it down to a safe place at my mum's house. So I went and met him, but because he's under surveillance, which I did not know of, just I left him and took the drugs. In a safe place, the police followed me. And because that car, that Mercedes, was also involved in the kidnapping, it's been involved in the surveillance all along, so they knew that was one of the cars involved in the kidnapping. So they started chasing me. I did not want to take that stop by the police because of what I'm carrying on me. So I was going through the back of Tottenham police station to go get there, stop, jump out the car and run to my auntie's house, which is at the back of the police station. And that plan didn't work. I went over something, tipped the car over, and I crushed. And I was on the roof of the car. I was trapped in it. And all of a sudden I heard police officers run to the car. They said, quick, get him out before the car blows up. Their faults and blow up the way it crushed. And they got me out. And they said, you're a very lucky boy. Don't know how you survived that.
Did you ever think that, I mean, looking back in hindsight, that was your way out?
Yeah, it was.
It was a very dramatic way out, but it was a way out.
That's a dramatic way out, and the sentence that followed was also a way out.
Okay, so you went to court, you were convicted, you were found guilty. What were you sentenced to?
I was sentenced to 9 years and 14 years concurrent.
Did it hit you at that point then? All the decisions that you've made, the consequences of everything, did it hit you at that point, everything that you had just done?
You know when it hit me? We got convicted in May 2002. That's when we got sentenced. 4 weeks before that, I just had my baby son. He was born during the trial. And I wanted to get not guilty so much to come home to him, but it never happened. And tears just started flooding in the court.
So you spent 9 years in prison, and you just had a son when you were sentenced?
Yeah.
So he was 9 when you left prison?
Yeah.
So did you see him while you were in prison?
I saw him grow up on prison visits.
So you saw him every stage of life, but you couldn't hold him, you couldn't go home with him, you couldn't celebrate his birthdays.
Nothing. First steps.
Take him to the park, play football with him, go to the cinema, watch a film, parents' evenings, taking him to his first day at nursery. You missed all of those things. So you weren't able to really have a relationship with him. How often did you see him?
Once a month, depending where I am, what prison I'm in. We have a tour, they keep moving to different parts of the country, different prisons. The further I come away from London, the harder for me to see it.
So everything was stripped away from you?
Everything.
Everything. So your friends now, you're not seeing your friends anymore. Who did you see? Who came to see you when you were in prison?
Family, mom, dad, brothers and sisters, my son.
So your dad didn't disown you?
No.
Okay. So you spent 9 years in there. What happened to the other members of the gang or your friends on the road? Did they come and visit you at all?
Nothing.
All right, so a transition took place then. You started to think differently.
Yeah.
You started to focus on different things. You started to draw on your academic ability now.
Yeah.
And you're looking towards education now.
Yeah.
You want to be educated. And I've read that you've said that you started to study at degree level.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just started to cram a lot of
go back to
knowledge
and what I know, how I was brought up, this is how I was brought up, and to go back to the drawing board. I'd like to go back to basics and start doing that again.
Okay.
That's what I know.
So the proverb I'm thinking of is Proverbs 22:6, which says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. The training that you had at the beginning, once all of that mess was out of the way, it all came back to you, and the discipline that you were given, which you rebelled against, is now something you're embracing. So how effective was that now on your life? Because you're growing now in knowledge and you're increasing in academic ability. You're getting qualifications now. What happened?
What, in prison?
What happened when you started to study? How far did that go?
When I started studying, it took my brain, my vision, like to a different level.
Yes.
And at the same time, I was always comparing it to what I just done, to be in prison.
Yeah.
And just everything that was happening around me, it was crazy. Like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even when I'm walking through the prison officers are looking at me like, son, you don't belong here, you're different, there's something about you, you're different. You're not like these other prisoners.
Yeah.
And everyone telling me all these things, and I'm studying, and the more I study, and the more I educate myself, I just knew that's not the right way to behave.
So your mind is coming out.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are coming out. You're seeing better.
Yeah.
You're seeing that this is not where I want to be anymore.
No.
I have to make a change. So you would have to, not to sort of, to coin a phrase and be corny, but you would have had to break that mould. You would have had to decide, this is no longer who I am, and this is no longer what I want, and this is no good for me.
Yeah.
You had an opportunity to do something with your life, to succeed, and to succeed legally.
Yeah.
And so you embraced that opportunity. What happened when you came out of prison? What did you do with the education that you'd accumulated?
When I came out of prison, I had a year to go before I graduate. My final year.
Yeah.
I'm finding that was the hardest year of my studies. Because when I was doing my degree, I'm locked up 24/7. I can't go partying, I can't do anything, but I have to study. When I came out, I had my final year, now I'm exposed to the world again, society.
Yes.
So there were things like barriers to my learning. I had to be really disciplined to make sure I see through that final year.
Yes.
And I achieved it. I did it. I made it. I graduated.
Okay, so what did you do next? Because you've gone on to do some wonderful things.
Yeah.
If you can tell us a bit about that, just tell us a little bit about that.
I walk into this company. It's a charity running for about 80 years. Mm-hmm. It's called Pepper. It's the background to the company is people learn disability. Look after people learn disability, autistic people and things like that. Cerebral palsy. And I walked into this man's office, the CEO. His name was Roger. Mm-hmm. I said, Roger, I'll come for volunteering. I want to volunteer and work for you for free. So he said, okay, I'll give you an interview. The man started interviewing me. And He asked me a question to do with social care, because that's what I thought is social care. He asked me, tell me, since you're doing health and social care degree, what is the difference between the biomedical model and the social model? And the way I explained it, he went, wow, some of my senior managers don't even know that. He said, I don't want to give you a volunteering job, I want to give you a paid job.
I think that deserves a round of applause. Wonderful. So you're inspired now.
I'm inspired.
You're inspired, and you know you've come away from something and you've stepped into really what you really should have been doing because of the ability that God gave to you. God gave you that ability. He gave you the ability to learn and to retain information. If you didn't have that ability to retain that information, you wouldn't have been able to read it off the way you did. So it's a gift that you've been given. And now you're operating in that gift. You're going to schools and you're warning youths. Okay, let's just tell me a little bit.
I've set up a company. It's called Empowering Young Prospects and Reform, Restore, Respect. Two companies joined together. One is a CIC, community interest company, the other is a charity. And I'll go around to all the schools in Kent that now live in Kent, because my past, what happened to me. I cannot live in North London. It's not me. I've changed my whole life around. So I'll go around to all the schools in Kent and London and talk to young people between the ages of 11 and 25. So people in spiritual referral units, colleges, secondary schools, primary schools. And I share with them my past, how I got into gangs, how I committed crime, how I ended up in prison, what prison is like. So when they hear my oral testimony, hopefully I strike something in one of them. I haven't got a magic wand or a talisman, but if I can change one person's life, I'm happy with myself. So I just share with them my testimony. Because when I was going to school, when I was going through that mad identity search, when I was lost, I didn't have no one come to talk to me what prison was like or consequence of crime is. So by me sharing that with them, hopefully they can
be deterred.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is good, so you're actually putting back in.
Yes.
You're actually giving back, which is wonderful. Please, everybody, put your hands together.
Gotta make a change.
I've nominated Francis Osei Appiah. Over the years, I've met about 7,000 young offenders in our workshops. They've been running for about 15 years in various young offender units. Some people make an impression on you when you first meet them, and our job is not to meet them again. The job is obviously they come out of prison, pick up their lives, and I never see them again in an ideal world. I engaged with Francis about 2 years ago when he left prison. He has an ability to engage with young people, and fortunately he's picked up on that ability. He goes into schools, delivers workshops similar to ours, not identically, but young people are a very challenging audience, and he's got the gift to engage with them. He came out of prison and picked up his life, managed to get himself a very good job in the community, but felt the drive to give something back. He puts that down to meeting me, but I think that inbuilt, whether he never met me again or not, Francis has that inbuilt drive to make an impact on young people's lives. I've actually watched him with a very challenging audience in a number of schools, and he just has a natural, you can't teach it, you've either got it or you haven't. It just has a natural ability to put his message across to young people, and they take it on board. That is an absolute exceptional gift.
And the winner is Francis Appiah. Can I say, I just want to thank everyone, who went to public vote, everyone who voted, there's been a lot of people behind me. People say, yeah, I got a gift, I'm talented, but behind every successful person, they've got people behind you, Kent Probation, the prison service, Kent Police, Ian, Outside Chance. You know, I've got great people behind me in what I do. You know, and I just want to say a big thank you. You know, Charlie, my partner. I'm always working. You know, you don't see much of me. You know, this is the recognition. You know, I just want to say thank you. I'm speechless. You know, thank you, everyone.
Gotta show them how to love, to live, to dream. I've gotta live out loud, do what I can. I've gotta spread the word of life so they can live.